I'm Steve Johnson, News Director of theDove TV. Watch more videos from the Dove Newsroom at thedove.us.
Welcome back, and we continue on with this topic today. And what a delight to have with us today Carrie Earll. She's focused on the family's Vice President of Public Policy, and I'm curious to just see how they're reeling in the shadow of all of this. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you again.
Hi, Barry. Good to see you.
Yeah. Focus's thoughts on Friday's ruling.
Well, the court went about as far as they could go. We were hopeful, maybe not optimistic, but hopeful they wouldn't go that far, but they did. And out of whole cloth, they've created a right to homosexual marriage that did not exist in the Constitution before, arguably doesn't today, but that is the law of the land. So it was really breathtaking that the court would tell more than 50 million Americans in more than 30 states their votes don't count. It's stunning. The court would take human history, thousands of years of human history, on the definition of marriage being one man and one woman, and throw it under the bus. But that's what they did. I think probably one of the most concerning about this in the immediate is the collision course that has now been set up between the First Amendment right of religious freedom, excuse me, and this created right of sexual liberty. And here to date, Perry, whenever we've had a collision between those two, between religious freedom and sexual liberty, religious freedom is lost. We have seen that with the wedding vendors, with military chaplains, with faith-based adoption agencies that have had to close their doors. We expect that list to grow, and that is really of great concern to us here at Focus on the Family.
So, one of the biggest side effects of Friday's decision is religious liberty in the United States. I don't know what's next. I don't know. You guys track it a whole lot more diligently. What do you think's next?
Well, it's going to take a little while for the fallout. We know that there's already legislation introduced in the U.S. Congress that would protect the First Amendment rights of people, at least in doing business with the federal government, if they hold this view. I think you'll continue to see skirmishes at the state level. States that have religious freedom restoration acts at the state level are better poised than states that don't. There will be some fallout, I think, at some point with Christian institutions, whether they are religiously affiliated schools, maybe even radio, television stations that are for profit. As far as churches right now, pastors are not required to officiate same-sex marriages. But there are implications for churches that loan their facilities or rent their facilities to non-church members. If you have or belong to a church or pastor a church where you live in a state where you have public accommodation laws that extend to sexual orientation, even before this ruling, and even more so now, I think, after, you could very well have same-sex couples wanting to use your facilities for wedding or reception, or homosexual groups wanting to meet there. So we would can advise you to contact our friends at Alliance Defending Freedom. They have some resources they've put together to help churches navigate this. What's going to happen? I mean, who knows? They're talking about free speech and tax-exempt status. Some of that may be just post-ruling skirmishes, but it does not look good in that sense, which is where the bride of Christ gets an opportunity to point people to the bridegroom, and we get to do what we were created to do, and that's to be a witness for the gospel in this culture.
It appears that there may be a sequence from what we're looking at here, is that this ruling will infringe upon First Amendment rights. Since the government's already taken over the internet, making it a utility, then they can go after content control. Next could be funding or at least acceptance of transfers from any kind of a Christian-based or faith-based school. Then probably would be the broadcast industry. They're looking at that now, and eventually to the pulpit, because you can't speak out of what the scripture says. Do you see that as all really on the table now?
I would say it's all possible. I certainly don't want to speak forth something that doesn't exist, but I think it would be naive to think that there are not going to be long-term and serious ramifications for the Church of Jesus Christ. When you look at even the dissenting comments of the justices, Justice Alito said, well, you may be able to whisper in the recesses of your home, but if you repeat these views in public, you risk being labeled as bigots and treated as such by the government, employers, and schools. So it is a disconcerting time, but again, we want to keep our focus also on the fact that God is sovereign in all this. He has put us in this moment in history. This generation is prepared for this if we will look to Him and lean on Him. We here at Focus on the Family want to encourage people to keep your marriage strong. If you are the marriage on the block that everyone looks to, if people look and go, why are their kids different? Why is their marriage different? We have an opportunity to even be more peculiar in culture because we're not going to celebrate this, and an opportunity to really show people why God's design is best. This whole idea of celebrating and the White House this weekend to be lit up in rainbow colors. Christians who hold a biblical view of sexuality, marriage, and family will not celebrate this. We can't pivot. We are people of the book. That is who we are. We will not be moved from that. And if there is a cost to that, so be it. We will lean on the grace of God and the wisdom of God to know how to handle it. But it certainly is a very dire ruling in that sense.
Do you think there's going to be a legal pushback? There's concerns now that the court's decisions last Thursday and Friday with Obamacare and, of course, same-sex marriages, that it's now overreached. It's tyrannical. It's telling states to do something that states have a right to say no, they don't want to do it. There at Focus on the Family, are you tracking this, that there may be a legal pushback on this?
Well, the way to overturn a court ruling like this would be for Congress to do something or to have a constitutional amendment. I don't know that we're poised politically as a social conservative movement to do that today. I think some of our best bets are to try to do things at the state level. I know that Governor Terry Abbott in Texas has issued an executive order this weekend that says that if you are a state employee and you believe marriage is between a man and a woman, the state of Texas will not force you to have to violate that by issuing a marriage license or whatever. So there certainly are things the states can do to set some religious protections in place, but we would need to be in a very different place politically. I want to encourage people to stay engaged. It's very easy after something like this to say, well, the court disregarded my vote. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to be involved in this. This is absolutely the moment we need to stay involved. 2016, the presidential and U.S. Senate races will decide very possibly 4 members of the U.S. Supreme Court. 4 members are over 75 years old. That means the next president and the next Senate are going to be deciding some, if not all, of those seats. And one of the reasons we are where we are today is because of the makeup of that U.S. Supreme Court. So we need to be engaged with every legal opportunity we have as citizens. The Apostle Paul took advantage of that. We need to too. But we need to also make sure our friends and family understand why we hold these views. Go to focusonthefamily.com. We have a landing page with all sorts of resources with talking points. There's a piece on there about how to talk with family members who disagree with you. We can hook you up there with Alliance Defending Freedom and some of their resources. There's plenty to learn here so that we can be prepared.
Good, very good. Okay, focusonthefamily.com. Again, tremendous resource. All right, Carrie, let me ask you this. What is Focus on the Family saying to people who are asking the questions, what do I tell my children? I mean, this thing hit the news. Kids are getting bits and pieces in the news. Mommy and Daddy, what does this mean? Mommy and Daddy, what's the gay marriage? All what's Focus on the Family telling parents to tell the children?
Well, it just so happens on our website at focusonthefamily.com, we have a number of resources. How to talk to your children about marriage, homosexuality. There's one on transgender issues. Basically, what we say, Perry, is this is an opportunity to train up your children in understanding a Christian worldview, that at God's creation, it was perfect, and this was the way God created it. But then sin entered the world, also through the human heart that we still have today. We live in that fallen world. But there is redemption, and there is a way that is God's way, and that's the way that for me and my house, we are going to serve the Lord. So it is really a wonderful opportunity for us to train up our children and also the next generation. I want to encourage people to be praying for their great-grandkids. We don't know what God has in store for the generations to come, and as Psalm 78 says, this is an opportunity to pray for the generations yet to be born.
Great. Did Focus on, I've been traveling, so forgive me if you did, but has Focus on the Family put out a public statement on Friday's ruling?
We did. Our president, Jim Daly, issued not only a video statement, but a printed statement. The radio broadcast has a whole program on that is dedicated with Al Mohler and Helen Alvarez. So you have both a legal and theological perspective. Excellent broadcast. So that there is no amount of silence, at least from social conservatives on this. I think it's encouraging to hear people talk with reasoned voices. No one's panicking. But we also know that we may be coming to a time that government tries to require us to do something we simply can't do. I think of Barronelle Stutzman, who's the florist in Washington State, who gladly served gay customers and even befriended them. But when a gay couple asked her to do the flowers for their same-sex wedding, she said, "I cannot do that." This dear woman, who is, I think, in her late 60s, early 70s, stands to lose her business, her retirement, her home, her everything. She is standing in civil disobedience to say, "I will serve God. I will not bow to the gods of this world." So those moments are going to come at different times. We know that some people are already facing that, especially the Christian business owner. Who will be next? I don't know, only God knows. But He will give us the wisdom and the courage to be able to navigate this.
Well, Carrie, thank you, and thank you to all of you there at Focus on the Family and the services that you provide. Let me say to our viewers and listeners again, focusonthefamily.com, an awful lot of resources Carrie shared with us. It's all listed out there. Thank you, Carrie. Best to you and the entire team there. Thanks for all your efforts, and thanks for taking a stand.
Thank you. Blessings to you, Carrie.
Okay, you too. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.